Good morning, West. Woo! How are we today? Good. Okay, well, you're going to get worse because we're talking about greed today. Woo! I'm kidding. So my name is Lexi. I'm the lead pastor of Growth Co., our ministry for people in their 20s and 30s. Our lead pastor, Andrea, is out supporting her partner, Tom, as he takes part in a triathlon today. So they're doing big, great things out there. Like I said, we're talking about greed today. Thank you so much for coming and being here. If this is your first time being here today, thank you so much. We're excited to have you. Please be sure to visit our first-time guest tent out front. We'd love to give you a gift and to connect with you. Let's enjoy one more song before we get into some greed. Hello. So how many of you think you would have been dropped out of the gene pool back then? I definitely think I would. I definitely would not have made it, I don't think. So part of doing the message on Sunday is doing research the entire week ahead so that I can have some fun facts and just make this a little entertaining for all of us. Something that I was a little disappointed in when I was looking up other sermons about greed, as someone who didn't grow up in the church, the only sermon about greed that you can really find online talks about money and possessions. And as a 26-year-old, I just feel like there's so many other ways that we show greed in our culture today, like how we spend our time or our expectations of ourselves and other people. And there's so many other parts of greed that aren't just about money and possessions. So I'm hoping today that we can take a look at some of those things. A couple weeks ago, I was up here talking about hurry sickness and just how time has changed throughout our society. And I referenced a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. It's an amazing book. It has changed my life. And somehow it has passages that fit in greed sermons. So I want to start us off with a passage in here. Page 53. Okay. So this man named Wayne Muller, he wrote a book on Sabbath, which Sabbath just means taking the rest, and it's a holy time to recharge. And this is a little part of his book. A successful life has become a violent enterprise. We make war on our own bodies, pushing them beyond their limits. War on our children because we cannot find enough time to be with them when they are hurt and afraid and they need our company. War on our spirit because we are too preoccupied to listen to the quiet voices that seek to nourish and refresh us. War on our communities because we are fearfully protecting what we have and do not feel safe enough to be kind and generous. War on the earth because we cannot take the time to place our feet on the ground and allow it to feed us and to taste its blessings and give thanks. I had that highlighted for a long time since I read this book. I never thought that I could use it in the greed sermon today, but as I was looking back through this, I was just like, wow, we really have a culture of war on ourselves, on our time, and on the things that we own because of how scared we are to lose those things. So today's message is called Greed, the Art of Letting Go. Now, of course, you know, if I'm standing up here, we're going to have some silly, fun facts. So I want to dive into this. Self-storage and McDonald's in the United States. I never thought that those two would be in the same category at all, but I want to hear what you guys think this statistic is. In the United States alone, so not globally, just in the United States, how many self-storage facilities do you think there are? Not individual units, but businesses for self-storage. How many do you think there are? 20,000, okay. 20,000, okay. How many? 12 million, close. 200,000, close. Okay, there are 51,000 self-storage businesses in the United States that have an annual industry revenue of $29 billion. Okay, that's a lot of money. Now, let's look at McDonald's in comparison. How many McDonald's are in the United States, do you think? Okay, there are actually less McDonald's than there are storage businesses. There are only 13,500 McDonald's. 13,500. Hey, I've told you guys before, math and numbers are not for me. Okay, so there are 51,000 storage unit businesses, and there are 13,500 McDonald's in the United States. McDonald's annual revenue in 2022 was only $9 billion. The storage industry had $20 more billion last year in the United States than McDonald's. I thought that was mind-blowing, and I personally probably account for $1 billion of those dollars at McDonald's anyway, so... Yeah, so how many of you could say that you that you knew that the self-storage industry brought in more money than McDonald's in the United States? I don't feel like that's a very obvious thing. That was mind-blowing to me. So I want to move on to my personal thoughts on our culture as a zillennial. I'm that weird. I was born in 1996, so I'm not really a millennial, and I'm not really Gen Z, so they call us zillennials, which is funny to me, but I feel very torn about our culture in America. It's obvious. So I was in kindergarten when 9/11 happened. So I was very young. I obviously was in like middle school when the recession last hit. And the main thing that I can remember in our culture that I've experienced as an adult would be COVID. It's obvious between my peers and between everyone else that I know that we're not necessarily a united nation on a lot of social issues, but I do get a little frustrated with my peers because I feel like I probably only think like this. Not a lot of people do, but there are things I do in my day-to-day life that I know I could not and would not do in another country because I would be put in jail or killed for it. So although we as a nation have a ton of things that we need to work on and we can improve on, which honestly is the goal anyway, we are people in process, hopefully for the rest of our lives. So having a perfect nation would probably be kind of weird and dangerous because if there's nowhere to improve, then you can only go backwards or down. So I hope we do make progress on some of the things that we need to change. But as a nation, I still feel a little patriotic. I'm proud to live in the United States, and there are a lot of things that I can do here that I could not do in other countries. So I feel a weird tension as a young adult who's trying to make my way in the world, and I have so many people who hate this country and then so many people who love this country. So I just wanted to start by saying that. I don't want to make this political because it shouldn't be, but yeah, the one thing that I know all Americans can agree on is that we know that in other countries we are known for being extremely greedy as a culture. Take a look at this video that I found about a young man who is an American, born and raised in America. He's moved away as a young adult. I feel like he's about my age. He never says in the video, but he looks like a young adult. He's moved and lived in the Netherlands for the last 4 years, and then he talks about his experience coming back to the United States in this video.
I just had a nightmare that I had to choose between 40 brands of toilet paper. It wasn't a nightmare. This is the US. I always enjoy coming back to the US to see family, friends, nature. The nature is unbeatable, especially in a place like California. But living in the US is sort of like living in one big Hollywood movie. It's an experience. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And after 4 years in Europe, I'm back in the US at the moment. So let me show you how I see the US now. It's time to do some grocery shopping. And of course, I hop in my car and drive 2 blocks to my local supermarket. And why walk when one can drive? Grocery shopping is an experience, an adventure. You see, I'm used to only 1 or 2 choices of brands to choose from in the Netherlands. Here, there are like 50 brands of everything to choose from toilet paper to sausages to coffee. Let's see, hazelnut, maple pecan. I'm gonna go with caramel spice this time. On one hand, the variety is amazing. On the other, it can take me up to 15 minutes to buy toilet paper. And oh, do you know about our national treasure, Costco? At Costco, you'll find anything and everything in extra large. Everything really is bigger in the US. Plus the free samples, and the cheap hot dogs. And yes, unlimited drink refills. This is America. It's time to go meet some friends for lunch. And on the way there, I see them. Oh my. It's always a shock. The homeless. This is the part that Hollywood never shows. But life goes on. It's part of everyday life in a big city. But I am looking forward to lunch and the food scene in the US. From Asian to Mexican to everything in between, there is something for everyone. And fast food everywhere. Every block. Every mall. Every day. And during lunch, my friend mentions her son had an allergic reaction. Went to the emergency room. Luckily, he was fine, but they received a bill for $20,000. And then my other friend tells me about the time he fainted, got transported to the ER, and was handed a $10,000 bill. It definitely makes one think twice before deciding to go to the ER. And then we talk about work, which is the most American thing to talk about. And he tells me casually, it's fine, same old, had to work this past weekend. Still working 60 hours a week. And I think to myself,
if I ever decide to return back to the US, I think it would be quite difficult for me to adapt back to the American way of life, culture, in terms of working, the number of hours, the stress, the lack of vacation, the fact that people don't take their vacation days. But I do miss parts of American work culture, the drive, the ambition, the energy, being surrounded by people who are very ambitious about their careers. It drove me to become a better person, a more confident person. And to be honest, I do miss that because that is part of my DNA growing up in the US. But it's a trade-off, right? It's a trade-off between, yes, you do make a lot more money in the US, but the trade-off is time.
And then we start talking about vacation. Another friend tells me about his jam-packed one-week vacation visiting 4 countries. And I was like, how is that possible? 4 countries, 1 week? Then I remember. That's how I used to travel as well. But wait, what the hell is this? Sales tax? Tip? Madness! I need to walk off this madness and the lunch. I walk towards Stanford University, which is nearby. I walk, and then I realize that I'm the only person walking. Oh wow, it's a lot further than I thought. No wonder nobody walks in the US. I arrived at campus to see a bunch of tourists. American universities, especially elite ones, are tourist hotspots. The brand name, the letters, the cost of tuition. It's one of the biggest businesses in the US. Now I wonder what the news outlets are saying, because I've stopped reading the news. It's like this all-out war, CNN versus Fox. You get 2 different stories. It seems like such a divided country nowadays. The left versus the right, Democrats versus Republicans, the police versus the world. But hey, at least public restrooms are still free in the US. It's time to head to the mall to do some shopping and say hello to American consumerism and overly friendly customer service people. Shopping in the US is sort of like a game, looking for deals, getting credit card points. It can be extremely fun and addicting. But this is all part of the game of American consumerism, so be careful, or else you'll be in credit card debt like a dearth of Americans. Well, it's late and it's time to head home. And of course, there's traffic at 3 p.m. And this guy ahead of me just cut off the cyclist. It's quite a shock to see bikes, cars, buses, motorcycles all merging together in one lane. It can be quite dangerous to cycle in an American city. I then go and meet some friends for a drink, and I meet all these techies. And of course, I get asked the popular question.
Hey, so what do you do?
I make YouTube videos.
Oh, so you work for YouTube and Google, right?
No, I just make videos.
Oh, okay.
What a long, exhausting day. Just another day in Hollywood. Just another day in the US of A.
Interesting. So this isn't on my notes, but I just remembered, so I went to Appalachian State for advertising and English. That's what my degree is in. And I will never forget learning about some of the tactics and strategies that the huge companies use in their advertising. Did you guys know that CVS and Walgreens are owned by the same people or the same family, same person. And there's actually some science behind that. When you feel like you have an option between multiple things, you're more likely to choose one of them than if you would have just not chosen one at all. They use that same strategy with Coke and Pepsi machines. That's why you normally always see a Coke and a Pepsi, because if there was just a Coke machine, you may walk past it and say, I don't need a soda right now. But if there's a Coke and a Pepsi and you know that you have a choice between the two of them, you're more likely to purchase a drink. So I did learn that in my advertising classes, and I find that crazy. That's why there's always a CVS and a Walgreens across the street from one another. You're giving the same people the money, but they make you feel like you have a choice between who you're going to support. So, fun fact that we get played and manipulated all the time. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, most of the time when we think about greed, we think about money and we think about material possessions. I talked with my peers, family members, and some of my coworkers and asked them in what way. I almost choked. Did you guys hear that? I just sucked in air so fast. These were some of the consistent answers between everyone. We can be greedy about our time, our attention, expectations, and our relationships. So let's start with time. Jonathan Estrin has a quote that says, "The way we spend our time defines who we are." And I think we've all probably heard that saying before, but I'm going to reference back to The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry and share with you something that he says about time. So, can you guess how much time the average American spends on social media a year? This has probably changed, but this book says 705 hours a year, which is only a couple hours a day. So I'm sure from what we learned a couple weeks ago when we were talking about time and the cell phone is that the average person over 35 spends about 3 hours on their phone every day, and under 35 spend about 5 hours every day on their phone. How about TV? How many hours per year do you think we spend watching TV individually, not as a whole? I'm going to get you a shirt that says 12 million. It's 2,800 hours. 2,800 hours. So this means for a fraction of the time that we give to social media and television, we could all become avid readers to the nth degree. The simple truth behind reading a lot of books is that it's not that hard. We all have the time to do it and to further our education and knowledge. The scary part, the part that we all ignore, is that we are too addicted, too weak, and too distracted to do what we all know is important to further our minds. I love statistics, which is funny because I failed it in college, but now I love statistics because it always just puts things into perspective. 2,800 hours a year doesn't sound like that much until you break it down. That is many, many hours per day that we are spending watching TV. And I think about even my personal relationship with TV. Monday through Thursday when I'm at the office, I don't really watch TV that much, especially not in the evenings. Tony and I normally will get home. We might watch an episode of whatever show we're watching while we eat dinner, and then we do our own things. I either do some more work on the computer. I love to read, so I read books at night. He plays Call of Duty. And so we don't watch much TV during the week, but there are days, like when I'm off and I'm at home and I have no plans, I will watch an entire series in one day. So that's like, it can be a 12-hour day of just watching TV constantly. So I know that those things add up. There are times when we choose to do things for ourselves rather than helping or serving someone else. And this is where time can become greedy. It's important to note that we do need to provide ourselves with real relaxation time. So there are times when we do need to be selfish and take the time to recharge, do the things that we love, because we all know that you cannot pour into others from an empty cup. So we do need to have a little bit of time to ourselves where we prioritize ourselves. So this is not to make us feel like we should have no free time and that we're being greedy if we have time spending it the way that we want to spend it. But if our lifestyle is starting to be defined by choosing to go home and watch TV every single night because we want to binge watch a show, which, like I said, I'm very guilty of, this could be seen as greedy. Now, our attention. Attention was a hard one because I know that I do it all the time in ways that I wouldn't really expect. I want to read you one last thing from this book because this is the part that really blew my mind when it was brought up. So Sean Parker was the first president of Facebook, and if you watched the Facebook movie, then it was Justin Timberlake's character. He calls himself an objector to social media. In an interview with Access, he admitted, so this is a direct quote from the president of Facebook, "God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. The thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them, was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. That means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. That's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you more likes and comments and us more money. It's a social validation feedback loop. Exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with because I'm exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology." That's kind of beat up. Not kind of, that is beat up. Like, I get on Facebook and I'm so happy to see what everyone's doing. And now, after reading this, I just imagine like a big mean guy, like Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob with like all his gold around him. And he's just laughing at us as we're sharing like what we're eating for lunch and stuff. Because to us, it's fun and it's a way to connect. But for the people who created it, it was like a manipulative thing for them to just continue to make more money. So it's kind of sad, and I know none of us are going to quit using Facebook over it, but it is what it is. The situation that I'd like to share next is with Tony and I. This is going to put me on the spot and make me look not so good, but there are so many times when Tony and I are both sitting there on our phones in our living room and just scrolling. We haven't talked for like 30 minutes. And then I decide I'm done with the rabbit hole. So I put my phone down and he's still on his. And I'm like, what the hell, Tony? Can't you get off your phone? And he's like, what? You were just on yours too. So not only like that situation specifically has greed coming from all sides. The greed from the higher ups who had both of us at their whim on our phones. And then when I decide I'm done, I'm getting greedy with Tony's attention because I wanted his attention at that very second. So those are the ways where I'm like, ooh, I don't think I'm greedy with my money, and we don't own a ton of stuff. So I used to always think like, yeah, we're not greedy. We're not that greedy. But when it comes to time and attention and my expectations of people, I am definitely greedy. So let's move on to what the Wikipedia definition of greed actually is. Greed is an uncontrolled longing for increase or use of material gain, be it food, money, land, animate, inanimate possessions, or social value, such as status or power. Greed has been identified as undesirable throughout known history because it creates behavior conflict between personal and social goals. So that's what the internet says greed is. Let's move to the Bible and see how greed is talked about with Jesus. We're going to read from Luke 12. And it says, speaking to the people, Jesus went on, "Take care. Protect yourself against the least bit of greed. Life is not defined by what you have, even when you have a lot." Then he told them a story. The farm of a certain rich man produced a terrific crop. He talked to himself, "What can I do? My barn isn't big enough for this harvest." Then he said, "Here's what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I'll gather in all my grain and goods, and I'll say to myself, 'Self, you've done well. You've got it made and can now retire. Take it easy and have the time of your life.' Just then, God showed up and said, 'Fool.'" That makes me laugh, like imagining God being like, "You fool." I think of Samuel L. Jackson, like, "Fool." "Tonight you might die, and your barn full of goods, who gets it?" That's what happens when you fill your barn with self and not with God. Now, again, I have a hard time talking about things like this because I do realize that I'm only 26 years old. I have not lived through, I think, a real recession where it's my money and not my family's money. So I do want to acknowledge that it's easy for me to come up here and say, hey, the Bible says that we should do blah, blah, blah with our money and that we shouldn't hold on so tightly to all of our possessions and all of our money and all of our blah, blah, blah. But I don't know scarcity that well. So I just want to put that out there, that I acknowledge that it may be like, yeah, easy for her to say up there. Don't we use people in the same way? As that Bible story showed, it was more, it wasn't really ill-intended or malicious. It was more like a scarcity mindset. Like, oh, I've got all this saved up, and I need to continue to have it saved up just in case. And then I can kick back and relax, because if anything happens, I'm good to go. I do really believe that we use the people we love in that same way. We use them to comfort us because we need their security for fear of abandonment, fear of not being liked, which are all very normal fears that we have as human beings in our relationships. But I want you to see this TikTok that I saw the other day that has completely changed how I look at my relationships with people.
This is the point at which I'm supposed to give my daughter away, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to release to you the honor of my life. From the moment I saw Corinne, I never could have imagined the beautiful, talented, strong, and loving woman that stands before us today. But she did not then belong to me and does not now belong to me or anybody else for that matter. Because she's my God's creation. She belongs to him. So Josh, I pass to you the honor of your life. Be her everything, because she is now your privilege.
Love TikTok. I love crying when I see random videos. I go from like really funny, ha ha ha, look at this, and then it's things like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to put my phone down now. That video, seriously though, it changed the way that I think about all of the people I care about and love. One of my biggest fears ever in life is to lose Tony. I think that that would be an unfathomable, like that, I can't even imagine what that would be like. But when I thought about what he said when he was giving his daughter away on her wedding day, and he called her the honor of his life because she is God's creation. She was never his, really. I thought, wow, I wonder what it would be like to apply that to our relationships. Although, yes, of course, I would miss Tony if he were to pass. How thankful and how beautiful it is, like how thankful I could be and how beautiful of a situation it is that we lived a life together in the same space and time. Like that doesn't happen. There have been millions and billions of people throughout the history of the world. There were so many chances that we could have existed separately or together, but we're here right now together. And I had to practice this part because I'm a crier and I would cry. And I'm thankful that I can't see any of you, but I feel that same way about you guys. Like, even if we're not besties or the best of friends, our relationship is special to me. And if I were to lose any of you, I would be devastated, but also so thankful. Like, there are so many, and I'm 26, some of you are older, the younger ones are out in the Commons area. It's not likely, if you really think about it, that all of our timelines would line up and we would be sharing experiences together like this. And that's so powerful. I'm so thankful that this is how everything ended up, and I would miss you like crazy. I really, really, really would. But I think if we start looking at people and things that we own as experiences that we can cherish and treasure, no matter how long we get to experience them, then things would be a little bit easier. I grew up with a single mom until I was 9 years old, and she got married at 9 years old, and then they had my little sister, and I clung to my mom. I was like, no, nobody else gets my mom. No one else gets my mom. And I had that personality up until a few years ago. I've only ever had one best friend at a time, and if my best friend had other friends, then that was not happening. I was sabotaging that friendship very quickly. I've always clung to the people closest to me because I hadn't yet grasped that people are not mine. Although you call your spouse your person and your children are obviously yours to cherish and take care of, we are all God's people, and we should be thankful for the time that we get to share together. Tony loves Tyler Childers, and there's an artist named S.G. Goodman. She has a song called Space and Time. And Tyler Childers does a great cover of that song. And Tony and I joke and say that it's our wedding song, even though it came out after we got married, just because it's a beautiful song. And it just reminds me of this message, space and time. The lyrics are like, I never want to leave this world without telling you I love you. I'm so glad we get to share this space and time. I want you to know how much you've shaped this heart of mine. And it's just so it's a beautiful song. If you have time to listen to it today, I really encourage you to look it up. Tyler's version is only on YouTube, but the S.G. Goodman version should be available everywhere. But that's just like, that concept is so powerful to me because we hold on to things. The best illustration that I saw when I was doing research for today was that God doesn't care that we have nice things or that we want nice things. It's not about like, if you have all these good things, you should go live like the Amish, because that's not really the answer either. But greed and sermons on greed should never make you feel shameful or shamed about the things that you do possess. It's okay to want to drive a nice car and to live in a nice house. And it's great if you save money and you do all of these things. We're not called to just go be homeless on the side of the street just because that would bring us closer to God. That's not what greed is about at all. The best illustration that I saw doing this research was God doesn't care about the things we have. It's when we're holding on to them like this instead of holding on to them like this. That was so powerful to me. Sometimes we have death grips on the things that we care about and the people that we care about, and that can be greed for us. But when you love the things you have and you take care of the things you have and you serve the things you have, but you're okay with letting them go, that's when you have real riches and wealth and experience the beauty and love of life. So, what could we do to help with greed? These are just a few of the little things. Stop multitasking and stop producing work on your downtime. And this example says work, but I think it also means everything. Don't feel like you have to produce as a parent, as a sibling, as an aunt, uncle. Don't feel like you have to just do everything all the time. Really take your downtime. Rejuvenate your day-to-day routine. So like I'd mentioned, make sure you're filling yourself so that you can properly serve others. Eliminate the same old things of little value throughout your day. Oh my gosh. Tony and I got in a huge argument the other day because probably a year ago we went through our massive closet with hundreds of pieces of clothing and we said, okay, we're going to donate these things. We had a couple things that still had the tag on them that were nice, and Tony said, you know what, I'm going to sell these on eBay or on Facebook Marketplace. I was like, okay, great. I'll take the donated things. You can handle selling the things that you want to sell. A year later, every single item is still in our clothing, just now in bags and doing all this other stuff. And I just walked in the house and I was having one of those days and I was like, this SHIT needs to go now, today. I don't care how it's gone. It just needs to go. And he was like, okay. If you know Tony, he is the most chill person ever. So when I have my little episodes, he's just looking at me like, really? So, yeah, but I have that feeling of like, eliminate the same old things of little value throughout your day. Why, after a year, are we still holding on to those clothes that we clearly don't wear and the Goodwill's 5 minutes from our house? Why have we not done that? Is that greedy that we've just kept it? I am a chronic oh, well, I might need it one day person. So maybe that's part of the problem. Change up where or how you accomplish your goals throughout your week. I saw this amazing quote on Pinterest that said, what would it look like if we started measuring productivity by how many books we read, how much sleep we get at night, how many times we laughed that day, how many hugs we gave, and how many times we compliment someone else, instead of, oh, well, I do this, this, and that at work, and my value is held up in my car, and my productivity is held up in how many social gatherings I do a week. We're really hard on ourselves as a culture, and I don't think it's our fault. I think it's just the world that we live in, same as the time sermon a couple weeks ago. I don't think it's anything that we're doing with ill intention. I think it's just something that's kind of happened to us, and we should take the time to smell the flowers sometimes. And then recognize when you get distracted to focus your attention where it's needed and where you would like it to be. So those are some simple steps we can take. My main point of today is that everything is on a loan system. So everything that we own, all the people that we spend time with, all of the people we love, our jobs, everything we own, all of our belongings, are all things that will not go with us when we pass. We know that's a no-brainer concept, but to really start treating everything like it's on a loan system. We can be extremely grateful and thankful for all of the people in our lives, all the things in our lives, for our job, but not to cling on to it like this, but to hold it and cherish it and serve it like this. Let's pray. Lord, there are strong cautions about our hearts' relentless hunger, quest, and demand to have a little more in this world. Today, Jesus' warning about all kinds of greed has broadened, and we ask you to mold our hearts into hearts that can find peace in letting go, that we can loosen the grip and control of all things, our loved ones, our possessions, our stubborn ways, harsh expectations, whatever it is that we still wish to control. We thank you for the power and freedom you provide in letting go and walking alongside of us to help us carry the burdens that come with life. It's in your name we pray. Amen. All right. Thank you so much for coming this week. I hope greed can look a little bit different for you moving forward. I know that it does for me. Next week, we are having a No Huddles Day, which means that we will not have worship in here like today. There will be an online message, but we are going to be getting ready and prepared for the Bash, which is our summer big community serving day, and we're going to have some opportunities for you guys to serve with us next week to prepare for the inventory and all of those big things. And then here at the high school, we are going to do some soul creations tagging to get ready for annual conference this year at the big Methodist annual conference in Lake Junaluska. Soul Creations is going to have a booth, so we're hoping to be able to sell some of our stuff there and get it in front of eyes of new people. So we're going to have a serving opportunity here at the high school to help us tag and label some of our products, and then there will be locations outside of the high school where you can help serve with Bash. So we hope to see you next week and we can all serve together. Thank you again for coming today, and we hope you go in peace.